Hey, what's up friends? My name's Elise. Welcome back to my channel. I actually filmed this whole video way earlier today and I thought about it and I hated all of it. So I'm redoing it. This is round 2. Throughout the video, you may or may not hear a friend outside. A stray cat showed up on our property a few months ago and she's finally grown more comfortable with us. Unfortunately, my mom and I are like severely allergic to cats. So we're trying our best to take care of it while also not going into allergic shock. So we're doing our best, but she's outside and very unhappy that she's not in here with me. Be sure to subscribe and join the fam for more bookish content. Our little fam is growing and it's so exciting. Thanks for stopping in and watching this video today. Today we're talking about the books that I've read so far in 2023. So the books I read in January and the books I read in February. So let's start from the top. The first book I actually read was actually a DNF. I was so anxious that this was going to set the tone for the rest of my reading year. I picked up Tanglewood Teashop. I just wasn't feeling it. Just kind of like the writing style. I wasn't able to connect with the characters like 20% in, and so I just kind of decided it wasn't for me and I just let it go. And one of my goals in 2023 is to DNF books if I'm just not enjoying it so much, or it's a struggle to get through, or I'm not connecting with the characters, because in my brain DNFing is hard, but it is also a form of self-care. You gotta do what's best for you. The next book was a little bit better. It was an ebook called The Teacher's Billionaire. The Teacher's Billionaire follows Dylan and Carley. I have notes over here, so if you see me glancing. Carley is a teacher and her mom passes away at the very beginning of the story. Unbeknownst to her, she has a secret dad who her mom told her was dead, but he wasn't really. Turns out he's a very high-profile politician, and her mom tells her this upon her deathbed, and they kind of start to develop a relationship. However, the man's stepson is like almost like his son and also kind of works for him since he's grown, and is like, I don't trust this woman. She's a con artist. She's trying to get your money, whatever. So he puts it upon himself to kind of get to know her and basically just watch over her and catch her in the act. Obviously, she's not like that. He kind of realizes he's wrong and they get to know each other and a relationship ensues from there. So it was cute. It was fine. Nothing wowing, but it was entertaining. Next we have the audiobook I Found You by Jewell, and this one was really fun. I'm not normally a huge person for thriller or suspense, but this one really captured my attention. I was enthralled. I really enjoyed it. The narrators did a great job. This follows a woman named Alice on the shores of Yorkshire. I believe it's Yorkshire. A man just pops up on the beach. These people know each other. They know each other. They know when strangers are in town, and he is just desolate. So she goes to him. He doesn't remember a thing. Parallel timeline tells about this family who used to come and visit this same exact place many years ago, and so you come to find out that this guy has a connection to that family, but in comes another seedy character into the mix during the past timeline, and so you're trying to figure out who this guy is that's lost his memory because he doesn't know. And I just really enjoyed it, the way it was all revealed, and I was even surprised at the end. So I had a really good time with this story. I definitely recommend it. Then we have an ebook called The Upside of Falling Down. Funny story. This is one of the first ebooks that I ever bought when I downloaded my Kindle app. This book is about a woman who wakes up in a hospital in Ireland. Come to find out, she can't remember anything, and she was the sole survivor of a plane crash. She's trying to find herself. She doesn't know who this man is, who supposedly is her dad, trying to come, and she just freaks out because she can't remember and she feels all this pressure, so she runs away. Come to meet this guy, and he's like, yeah, I guess you can stay at my guest bedroom for like a week or so. Just figure yourself out and you can stay there. But naturally, as any romance book does, they get to know each other. The girl, she goes by Jane for most of the book, tries to figure herself out and what she wants. I was a little bit confused by this book because some moments it was like so good and I was just so there for Jane, and then other moments she just had these thoughts or like retracted what she had done earlier, and I was just like, why? I just feel like the whole traumatic incident could have been a really good leeway into some in-depth thoughts and introspection, and she just ran from everything that bothered me. Drink some water, everyone. Then we have Scattered Petals, which is a sci-fi romance. Viola is a professional video gamer, and she does the like futuristic simulation video games. Well, she just wins this competition, and she just like won a new phone, and the phone like zaps her somewhere. So she thinks she's in a simulation because she lands on this place with this gorgeous flora, these giant tree homes, giant tree plant people. So she's like, oh, I'm in a video game, like how do I beat this level? But it's very real, and the plant guy is like, you're my mate. So it's like insta love, fated mates. It had some spice in it. I really like the concept of this book. I really loved the world, but some of the execution of it wasn't my favorite. I think what happened is I saw so much potential in it, and the execution wasn't exactly where I personally would have wanted it, but overall it was still a fun read. The next 10 books that I read in January are actually also in this video. I ended up having 10 books that I was reading concurrently. I ended up making a video called This Video Ends When I Finish All of My Current Reads. I couldn't read any other books until I finished those 10 books. And let me tell you, there were a lot and they were good. The first one of the challenge that I finished is The 100th Queen. This follows Kalinda, an orphan. In the society that she lives in, which I'm assuming is South Asia, people who donate, are benefactors to the orphanages, can come and claim any of the girls as servants, as concubines, as wives. And Kalinda ends up being claimed. Come to find out, it's the king. She is going to be his 100th queen, but not until she wins a fighting competition. She makes this journey to the palace, and along the way she befriends Devon. They kind of get to know each other, kind of become friends. I loved the imagery of this book. The adventure was really fun. The things that I kind of had a problem with were that the foreshadowing was so intense that you could kind of see what was gonna happen a mile away, and I just felt like it was kind of dragged out a little bit. I think it's a 5-book series, and in my opinion it probably could be a 3-book series. Then we have another audiobook called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. She is a psychologist. I think kind of the tagline of this is that if you can't afford to go to therapy, or you don't know where to start in therapy, start with this book, because she had a lot of really great commentary, ideas, suggestions for you when, you know, feeling anxious or in a downward spiral, or when you're ruminating on things. I thought she had some really practical advice and tips and like actionable things that you could do that would make you feel better or help you like calm down from those moments. Not necessarily therapy, but like so that you could get in a better place and then decide if you needed therapy. Okay, my next book is my first physical read of the year. Can you believe it? And that is Every Summer After by Carley Fortune. This book was so good. I really enjoyed it so much. Again, if you guys are interested in like my thoughts as I'm reading the book, go check out the video, but I'll just give you like a quick synopsis and quick thought. This follows Persephone, or Percy, and Sam. Percy and Sam were best friends when they were little. Persephone and her family would go to this lake house, and Sam and them were her neighbors, and so they developed this summertime friendship. So that's one timeline, and then the other timeline is the current timeline, and Persephone and Sam no longer talk to each other. One thing brings them together is a death of a family member. It kind of brings them back to this town, and we kind of explore their relationship after the fact, and like them getting to know each other a little bit more, while also seeing this timeline of like how they became friends. It is so cute. The writing is so smooth, and Carley does such a good job of capturing those like raw emotions, like bursting of emotions, especially as a teenager and you're having your first crush, and like everything is just so strong. The feelings are so strong. She did a great job, and I really enjoyed it. Then I had a Libby borrow The Girls I've Been. I loved this book so much. It was just so unique and so well done, and it just sucked me in. This book follows Nora, and what's really unique about Nora is that she was raised by a con artist. Her mom was a con artist, and once she got to a certain age, had Nora become these other girls for her long game to con these people. So Nora's been like 6 or 7 other girls. So that's one timeline, and then the next timeline is the current, the now, where Nora and her friends go to a bank to deposit some money they raised in a fundraiser, and the bank is robbed by these 2 very big angry men. While Nora has tried so hard to put that in her past, she has to call on these other girls that she's been before, and the things she's learned about like reading people and reading people's tells and manipulating people in order to keep them safe during this bank robbery. And it's so fascinating. I loved it so much. There's a little bit of queer rep in it too, and I appreciated that. The chapters were really fast paced. It was just so unique, and I had such a great time reading it. I think I have to give it a 5 star. Then we have Queen of Shadows, which I listened to on audiobook. I have read this series several times. I am obsessed with Throne of Glass, but this is my first time listening to it, so I'm slowly listening to the whole series. So Queen of Shadows is the 4th or 5th, depending on what you view Assassin's Blade. If you view Assassin's Blade as 1 or 0. Anyway, it's like the 4th or 5th book in the series, and Aelin has come back from Wendolyn, and she's kind of setting up her things in the kingdom. The next book is an ebook called Devil's Lair by Anna Zaires, I believe, and this follows Chloe, who has just been like attacked by these random men who are following her and trying to kill her. So she's on the run. She has very little cash, very little anything on her, because she's just trying to escape. And so she runs out of money, runs out of gas, and comes to this random town in Idaho in the middle of nowhere and sees an ad for a very well-paying nanny job, and interviews and gets the job. She's very excited because this whole place is like, it's like a compound. It has like all of the security, giant fences, and a very attractive single dad. Naturally. What she doesn't know is his secrets and where his family is from, but then he doesn't know her story and being chased and everything, and naturally they can't resist each other. Naturally he's like a billionaire. Secrets come out. It gets pretty intense at the end, like lots of action. Pew pew. Check the trigger warnings for sure. The next physical book is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 2nd book in the Six of Crows duology. I am so glad that I finally finished this. I love all of the different characters. They are all so distinct and unique, and they just really shine on the pages. We have Kaz and Inej, Jesper, Wyland, Matthias, and Nina. I am really excited with the potential for the next stories that I'll have to pick up. I'm so excited for season 2 of Shadow and Bone on Netflix. Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed this. Then we have Maggie Moves On by Lucy Score. I really enjoyed this book too, like maybe a 5 star. This book follows Maggie, and Maggie is a YouTuber but also a home flipper. She buys things, fixes them up, flips them, and sells them, and that's her job, and then she moves on to the next. So Maggie is always moving on to the next project, the next home, the next town. But kind of partway through, one of her workers and best friends is like, how long can you keep this up? So she's thinking about this as she's working on her next project in also Idaho. Funny. Devil's Lair and this is in Idaho. I just put that connection together. She's fixing up a historical home, and in comes Silas, one of the landscape workers from the town, and he just kind of challenges her in several ways. He just kind of pushes her to relax and pushes her to think about herself and self-care and going out and having fun and not working all the time. Just like enjoying life. It's really cute. Silas is one of my new like book boyfriends. I love him, and Kevin is the dog and a very present character in the book, and it's so fun. I love the small town romance, the forced proximity. Their banter is so fun. I just had a really great time reading this. The next book is an audiobook called The Play by Elle Kennedy. I'm slowly listening to the Briar U series on audiobook and really enjoying it. The Play is actually one of my favorites of the series so far. Hunter is the now hockey captain on the Briar U team, and he is known, quote unquote, from the book, not me, as a man whore. He really went after it last year, slept around, and he believes that's the reason that his team lost last year. So this year he decided to be celibate. He's not sleeping with anyone, no girls, nothing. In comes Demi. Demi and Hunter end up on a project together. They become friends, and when Demi's boyfriend proves to be a terrible boyfriend, Hunter kind of just is a really supportive, good friend, and Demi is like, be my rebound. There was also really good like mental health rep, I think, towards the end. I really liked how that was handled. Definitely check the trigger warnings. The reason why this is not a 5-star read for me is because Demi is very insistent on her and Hunter sleeping together, and she tries again and again and again and again. And while she respects him when he says no, she just keeps trying and like keeps pushing. If the roles were flipped, the gender roles were flipped, that would be seen as very aggressive and very not okay if that was a guy doing that to a girl, even if she said no and he stopped but kept trying. So I was like, why is it okay for a girl to do that to a guy? It's not. That really bothered me, and I'm really sad that that was the case, because this honestly had 5-star potential for me. Moving on to my next ebook is Royally Crushed by Melanie Summers. This follows Will, who is the youngest sibling in this book universe. There are 3 series in this universe, and they all intertwine with the different siblings, and Will is the youngest sibling, and so he has his own series. Will is a very outdoors, naturey guy. He goes and does these like dangerous trips and is filmed and has his own TV show for like documentaries and stuff like that. However, the ratings have plummeted, and his program decides that he is going to spice things up by having a female co-host. And who is his female co-host? None other than the Princess of Avalonia, or whatever country they're in, who has no idea about survivor skills. So they get dropped off in the middle of nowhere, Africa, and they have to make their way through the jungle to a town and do it in a certain amount of time in order to win this big prize. So Will kind of tries to help. Princess Arabella kind of learns along the way. You know, she's been very sheltered her whole life, so this is a very big experience for her. The action was really fun. Will was kind of a jerk for part of it, but he eventually relented. But I was just like, bro, stop. I was so annoyed at one point. I think this is supposed to be an adult novel because Princess Arabella is 28 or 29 and Will is even older than that, but it read very young, very YA. Like, if I didn't know how old she was, I would say she was like 16 or 17. That was a little off-putting for me, but I still had a good time reading the story, and you know, I've read a bunch of Melanie Summers' other books and really enjoyed them, so I'm hoping that her character growth will come in book like 2 or 3. Next we have Legendborn by Tracy Deon. The writing and all of the components of it were so impressive. I was in awe. However, I don't know if high fantasy, I'm not sure what this would be classified as, is my jam anymore, simply because of how much effort I have to put into reading it and remembering and keeping everything straight. This book had a lot of information and it wasn't a light read, and most of the books that I try to read nowadays are like for light reading and to escape and to entertain. And while this was entertaining, it was also very energy consuming. However, there were a lot of things that I really did enjoy about it. The action was great. Tracy Deon also talks about, and I think did a really great job of incorporating difficult conversations. You know, she touched on grief, she touched on coming into society as a young Black woman, the trauma and the past that affects people of color, and just like the history surrounding that. And from the outside looking in, I just feel like I could learn a lot from this book, and I appreciated Tracy Deon for putting those tough things in there. As a white woman, the only way I can learn and grow is from doing research and reading about things like this and hearing about things like this. So the more of that content that I can consume, the more I can hopefully understand and be there. Okay, that was the last book from that video that I filmed, and we are moving on to February. In February, the first book I read was Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I borrowed it from Libby. I actually read this in one day, mostly because I only had one day left on my Libby borrow, and so I just tried to zoom through it. Georgie is a kid's birthday party clown. Like, literally, she is a clown for kids' birthday parties. And then Travis is like a retired baseball star. Like, his knee was injured so badly he just can't do it anymore. They end up in this small town where Georgie's family is, and her brother is now either the owner or runs the family company where they flip houses. Lots of flipping and stuff going on. Georgie is just kind of seen as a joke to her family. She tries to be taken taken seriously, but I think, you know, being the whole clown thing doesn't help her either. She's just kind of a jokester, puts on a happy face. That becomes a thorn in her side throughout this book. And then Travis is obviously depressed because his whole dream and career is in the dumps. So Georgie takes it upon herself to get him out of a funk, and it does. She gets him up and going, and he kind of starts seeing her more seriously and not as a little sister figure, because of course Travis and her older brother are best friends. So it's kind of a little bit of like a forced proximity, brother's best friend. And then at one point they start fake dating, one so that she can be taken more seriously, and two so that he looks more stable for a future job he's trying to get, because he of course is a womanizer. It was cute. I had a good time reading it. I know a lot of people really hated the fact that she was a clown, and I was just like, it was fine. It was different, you know, it was fine. It was an enjoyable read. Okay, so the next few books I read after this are from another video I filmed where I originally tried to read Greek mythology for 24 hours and that didn't work, so I extended it and read Greek mythology books for a week. I started off with Ariadne, and Ariadne is following the story of Ariadne, of course, and her little sister Phaedra. Both of them are princesses of Crete, and Crete is ruled by Minos. Ariadne and Phaedra are sisters to the Minotaur, that notorious monster bull creature that they shove into the labyrinth and send innocent children to go and be eaten by him. Well, Theseus comes from a neighboring country and he wants to destroy the Minotaur, and Ariadne decides to take her fate and future into her hands and helps Theseus destroy the Minotaur. A lot of things happen after that. I don't really want to spoil it because I was shocked by what happened after all of that, and the story just it was fascinating to me, so I don't want to go any farther than that. But we do get to see Ariadne as she grows and where she ends up. She does develop a relationship with Dionysus, the god of wine, and then Phaedra, who ends up in Greece, and her husband and things like that. So very beautifully written. There are some beautiful quotes in here. I will say it's very slow paced, and if I didn't do the challenge, I probably would have read it at a slower pace so that I could enjoy it a little bit better. I only had a certain amount of time to read it, so I tried to kind of speed through it, but I think reading it at a slower pace would have been a little bit more enjoyable and I could have absorbed it more. Very long-winded. I don't know if you can tell, but it's quite dense. There's not very much white space and there are a lot of words, so just keep that in mind. But still had a really good time. I'm really glad I finally picked it up. Next we have The Silence of the Girls, which is another Greek mythology read. It follows Briseis, who is Achilles' war prize during the Trojan War. This book was really fascinating to me because I also have read Song of Achilles, and so I knew kind of what happened during that time, but having it from Briseis' point of view, who is not a Greek woman, she is a Trojan woman, so she's very bitter, of course, towards her captors and towards Achilles, and having a not so shiny idea of Achilles was really fascinating because Song of Achilles is from Patroclus' point of view, and Patroclus, like, that's his best friend, you know? It's from the man side of view of like, oh, he's a warrior, he does such incredible physical feats, and look at all the people he destroys, and raw testosterone. And then on this side we get to see the women who are treated so poorly and they just continue on despite everything. Next we have an ebook called 6 Months in Montana, and if I'm being really honest, I feel terrible saying this, but if it hadn't been so short, I think I would have DNF'd it. It was just a short, easy read in between some of the heavier Greek mythology that I was reading. This follows Molly and Christian's grandfather just passed away and left an inheritance to Christian and left him the business and everything, and added in a clause that he needed to marry this woman for at least 6 months before he could get his inheritance and completely own the business. So it was just like the finagling family member. So of course Molly would agree to it because all of these people are riding on their decision. So she leaves her sparkling New York City and comes back because they were childhood friends, so they can figure it out, right? It was very straightforward, not very many like similes or comparisons that could bring really fun imagery to your brain. A fun light read. Next we have the audiobook Mythos by Stephen Fry. This was also part of my reading Greek mythology for a week, and it was so fun, you guys. It starts with the Titans and moves on to the gods, the demigods, and bringing humans into the world, and just kind of tells those myths and stories. Stephen Fry is apparently a comedian, and so he sprinkled in so much humor into everything, and I just had such a good time listening to it. I laughed so much. It was so fun. The next book that I read is Do I Know You? This book caught me by surprise. I saw it on social media and I really liked the sound of it, and I just needed to read it like right then. This book follows Eliza and Graham, who have been married for 5 years or so, and they love each other so much, but their relationship is kind of crumbling. They don't really spend much quality time together. They're in their rut, their routine. They don't know how to talk to each other anymore. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but they like love each other so much despite all of this, and they want to make it work, but they just don't know how. So they get gifted an all expenses paid vacation, like 7 days in some tropical place, and they're like last ditch effort kind of situation. Kind of accidentally they run into each other and pretend that they don't know each other, so they just latch onto this idea and continue with it. Most of the rest of the week they pretend like they're meeting for the first time and dating for the first time and getting to know each other, and it's so cute and wholesome. I just love how much they loved each other and how much they were willing to try, and it also made me kind of introspective on my own relationship. And though I'm not married, I think it's so important that we evaluate our relationships and see how we can add value to them, and if things aren't going well, what can we do to try our hardest to make that a long-lasting and a healthy relationship. And this kind of reminded me of that and made me think of that, and I really liked that. I really enjoyed this, and I know this probably won't be for everyone, but it was different for me and I liked the message that it had. Really recommend this. The next few books that I read and listened to are actually part of another video that either is up right now or will be up soon depending on when you're watching this, and it's where I swapped my screen time for reading time, and that is She's Up to No Good. She's Up to No Good follows Jenna, who just kind of had a surprise divorce thrown at her. So she goes and lives back with her family in her family home and kind of sulks and goes into a downward spiral. Jenna's grandmother, Evelyn, comes for the summer and is like, let's go on a trip to my childhood home. So we have this timeline in the now and the present, and then it flips back to Evelyn's youth when she's a teenager in this town that they're visiting, and her big love, Tony. But what Jenna is really confused about is Tony is not her grandfather. Her grandfather is another man. He passed away a few years ago. I was also confused by it because things didn't really wrap together until the very, very end, and I felt like it might have been a little nicer if it had started wrapping up a little sooner. I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. Also, something that kind of made me a little uncomfy was that Jenna's grandmother, Evelyn, was trying to get her together with Tony, her great love's grandson. So just kind of like, oh, that is uncomfy. I didn't love the banter as much. I really get frustrated by the whole, but my father won't let me marry you. And I know I can't say I understand that because I didn't grow up in that time period. I think it might be a trope or something that I just might not consume anymore. Next, I borrowed Stuck With You, part of the like STEMinist novellas by Ali Hazelwood. Eric and Sadie had like a very swift romance together. They had one great, amazing, incredible night, and then Eric betrays Sadie. And then somehow like months later they end up in an elevator together, and they haven't like talked since then, and he kind of forces her to tell him what's going on, like, why did you avoid me, all this stuff. So it's bouncing back between like now and then. I was not a huge fan of this. I just feel like lately a lot of Ali's main female characters are the same amount of quirky, the same amount of weird, and just like a little too similar for me, and like the men are big and tall and brooding and aloof, and I needed to mix it up a little bit. Next we have Electra, and I borrowed this from the library, so I'm gonna let past Elise tell you about that book because I had to turn it in. Hey friends, I just wanted to talk to you guys about a few books because they are library books and they are going to be due soon. First off, we have Electra. I don't know if you guys saw my Greek mythology reading vlog or even my swapping my screen time reading vlog, I talked about this book a lot. Just a really short recap for those of you who haven't seen those videos. This story follows 3 women who have a connection to Agamemnon's life. Now, Agamemnon is the man who led the Trojan War from the Greeks side of things. The 3 women that have to do with his life are Clytemnestra, who is his wife. Next is Cassandra, who has the gift of vision but is cursed for no one to believe her, and she is on the Trojan side of things. She is a daughter of the ruling kingdom there. And then we have Electra, who is Agamemnon's youngest daughter, and she just wants her dad to come home. At the beginning of the book, Agamemnon betrays Clytemnestra, and so throughout the rest of the book, she kind of plots to get revenge on him. Cassandra has visions of Agamemnon destroying her city, but no one believes her. And then Electra she just wants her daddy to come home, and she grows up knowing that something's off with her mom. So she just kind of grows up bitter and sad and like just wanting to see her dad and make sure everyone's as proud of him as she is. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and I think I enjoyed Electra a little bit more just because the writing style flowed a lot quicker. There were 3 points of view. I liked the fact that each point of view in each chapter had a beginning and an ending. Each chapter kind of wrapped up before moving on to the next. Okay, the next audiobook I listened to is Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka, and I had such a good time. You guys, 5 stars. I was amazed. Definitely not my normal read, but I'm so glad that I picked it up. And I don't want to tell you too much because I remember watching a video with Carrie Cakes where she talked about this book, and she was really glad that she went in kind of blind, and I'm really glad that I went in blind. But I will give you like a little bit. I feel like it's in the synopsis. Ansel is on death row. He has 12 hours to live. So you get the now, his timeline of his countdown. And then you go back, and there are 3 women who also have timelines in this story who had an impact or were a big part in his life. You kind of see how their stories intermingle and how Ansel got where he was, and I just loved how this story was told. The narrators did an incredible job, and the way it was written is that you like feel those things, and I go really into detail in the swapping my screen time for reading time, so if you really want to know my in-depth thoughts, go watch that. But 5-star, loved it so much. The next physical book I read was When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This book was so wholesome. I saw someone review it and say that it was like a warm hug, and I'm like, absolutely. Like a little warm blanket wrapped around you. This book follows Amelia Ray. I get her names mixed up. This book follows Amelia Rose, who is a pop star, Ray Rose, and she just is burnt out. She has a huge tour coming soon. She's so busy. She needs a break. So she takes a note out of her favorite celebrity's book, none other than Audrey Hepburn, and goes to Rome, Kentucky, that is the closest Rome to her. Of course, her car breaks down on the way there, and she ends up in front of this guy's yard, who naturally is very handsome, single, and his name is Noah, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with her. However, her car is literally broken down, so he does agree to let her stay in his guest room while the car gets fixed because supply chain issues. She ends up kind of getting to know the town. They begrudgingly get to know each other because Noah has had his heart broken by beautiful women from the city, and he refuses to let it happen again. But naturally, it's a romance novel, so they fail pretty badly. Super cute, super swoony. Loved Rome, Kentucky. Loved the found family aspect of this. Their banter is so cute. It is a clean romance if that's something you're looking for or not looking for. It was a good time. The next audiobook actually ended up being a DNF. I hate saying that, but it is what it is. Misadventure. It's like a memoir of how she came into geology and some of the things she didn't explore, and I was really excited because I was like, ooh, I'm like faintly interested in that stuff, so maybe I could like learn some things and get some cute anecdotes. It was just like step by step by step by step what she physically did. There was no introspection. There wasn't really humor or lessons she learned. She like hardly even explained some of the technical terms, which I feel like is a really great opportunity to teach us non-scientific folk, you know, and get us interested in it, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. The next book is also a library book that I had to return, so Pastelise, take it away. Next we have Starfish, which I read in my swapping screen time for reading time. Starfish follows Kiko, who is kind of trapped by her mom, trapped by her family's expectations. They are not very kind to her. We see this very early on and it's very frustrating. Kiko is an artist and really wants to get into the school called Prism, which she ends up not getting into, and she's kind of devastated. But whenever her uncle decides to move back in, who is not a good man, kind of has a weird past with Kiko, but we don't get that revealed until later on, so you know something's off. So when he decides to move back in, Kiko is like, I can't. Whenever she has an opportunity to kind of live with a friend of hers out in California and tour schools and stuff like that there, she takes the opportunity and goes back with him, and they kind of revive their old friendship. I liked the concept of this book. I appreciated that it talked about some really difficult things. Kiko kind of has anxiety. Her mother is narcissistic. So it touches on things like that and Kiko kind of discovering herself. However, I don't know if this is because I did not grow up with a narcissistic parent or someone of that sort with a huge influence in my life. Maybe because I'm on the outside looking in, but I thought that things became very, very cyclical, and maybe the author was trying to show that that's how a narcissistic relationship can be, or a relationship with a narcissistic person. But I just found it a little bit tiring towards the end, and I read a review that I thought wrapped it up really well. It kind of seemed like her slightly romantic relationship with her friend that she got reacquainted with was what pulled her out of that situation and started her journey of self-discovery. And while it was a good thing that she got out of that situation and was able to see things more from the outside looking in, I didn't like that it was a romantic thing that initially started that, if that makes sense. In situations like this, especially if someone wants to learn from this, I really like the idea of them kind of doing it without romantic attachments, because if you are in a bad position and then you start a romantic relationship, that's going to create a relationship where you are dependent on that other person, and I don't necessarily think that's healthy. Anyway, I'm getting way too into this. Okay, you guys, our next audiobook is Love Boat Taipei. I listened to Marissa Meyer's The Happy Writer podcast and listened to Abigail Hingwing on there and just like became really curious about it. So I was so excited to finally pick it up. It was very fun. Very YA, like them doing silly things away from home, making bad decisions because they've been controlled and told what to do their entire lives, except it's in a foreign country, in Taiwan. I loved the Taiwan Asian vibes. It made me miss South Korea a lot, because if you're new to my channel and you've made it this far in the video, I used to live and teach in South Korea for 3 years, and so I love Asia. I miss it so much. So this was very nostalgic for me, even though I never had the opportunity to go to Taiwan yet. But I could just imagine it, you know? I could feel it and like smell it and like understand what she was writing about, and I thought that was really fun how vivid this book was. Ever is our main character, and she loves dancing. She is going to school to be a doctor, but she loves to dance. Well, her family cuts that off. No more dancing. You're going to a school in Taiwan for the summer for good grades and to meet people and to focus on school. And so Ever goes, and she kind of rebels. She gets a very rebellious, very outgoing roommate named Sophie, and Sophie's like, let's do all the things in spite of your family, and Ever is like, yeah. So she goes to the parties, she goes and kisses boys, she wears scandalous clothes, she wears makeup and things like that, and obviously she gets in a lot of trouble. What I did really enjoy is that Ever kind of learned from those experiences. Instead of doing things to spite her family for the rest of the book, she kind of took a step back and did things because she wanted to and she would enjoy them, instead of because it would be something that would drive her parents crazy. So I really enjoyed that character growth. I really enjoyed the relationships in this book because they were a little sticky and complicated. Those feelings of feeling desired versus really liking someone versus like having respectful attention on you for the first time and things like that. So I thought that she did a really good job of writing those while encompassing like a really fun, vivid setting. We're on an Asia kick because the next book is XOXO by Axie Oh. This book, you guys, I think I have to give it like a 5-star just for like the nostalgic factor. It was really well written, but like I miss Korea so much, and this was like Korea wrapped in a box and handed to me like in a book form. This follows Jenny, and one summer night when she's working at her grandfather's noraebang, which is the Korean equivalent of a karaoke place, she runs into this mysterious guy. Series of random things happen, and they kind of end up spending the night around Koreatown and LA together, and then he just disappears from her life, even though she thought they had a really great time and maybe could have been friends. Her grandmother is not doing well. She lives in South Korea, in Seoul, and so her and her mom go and move to Seoul for a few months. Jenny enrolls in a music academy there. So this was really fun for me because it was very YA, but I thought it was handled really well. Like, she made YA decisions, but it didn't like make me cringe. Like, it felt very much like a decision I might have made when I was in high school or whatever. She's exploring a new country for the first time. She's learning to make new friends. She's experiencing, you know, some struggles here and there while also exploring a new country. But the caveat is that Jenny finds that guy that she had that amazing night with in LA, and his name is Jewell, and he ends up being in a K-pop band called XOXO. You know, now she has to worry about like, should she be friends with him? Is that gonna spoil things for him? Because he is an idol, and if you know anything about being an idol in Korea, basically it's such an honor that fans feel like idols should give their lives to their fans. And so if they find out that you have a partner, a significant other, or do too much with the opposite sex, then it's like bad. It's bad. They have to dance around the fandom, decide if it's worth being friends or not. The next book we have is an ebook called Whiskey and Wine. I actually won this in a giveaway on Goodreads. It follows Leah, who is an event planner in Canada, and Ben, who owns a winery and distillery in Canada and is an ex-hockey player. So he does not like press. He does not like the media at all. Ben needs an event planner. Something happened to his, and so Leah fills in and kind of helps him. But right off the bat, they kind of like butt heads and don't agree. So I guess it's kind of like enemies to lovers, workplace romance kind of situation. But of course, because it's a romance, they get to know each other and get past their misconceptions of each other. And Leah kind of wiggles into Ben's life, even though he is grumpy and she is sunshine. Oh, also Leah is plus size, or I guess a fat MC. I really liked how confident Leah was, and I really loved in their more intimate scenes how much Ben was like, yes, queen. I loved that so much because that does happen in real life. So I love seeing that portrayed in a book. I loved the setting. That was really fun, and like the coziness of like the ice skating and the campfires. What I didn't love was that Leah seemed like such a workaholic that she didn't have any friends. Her family was too far away, so they weren't even someone she could lean on. And so she made this connection with Ben, and so he ended up being like the only person she could rely on. And then of course, because it's a romance book, things happened between them, and then she couldn't rely on him anymore. So she had no one, and I don't like that. I don't like that. But that's just my personal opinion. And also because things happen, I don't think Ben groveled enough. I think he needed to do more. Yeah, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay, the last audiobook and last book of January and February is The Layover. This book follows Ava, who is a flight attendant, and her job is kind of sporadic. Sometimes things happen and she can't get home on time, and so it is her last trip because she just got engaged and she's going to marry her attorney fiance, and he is going to provide stability and he is going to provide an income so that she doesn't have to worry about it and they can build a family and all of these things. Well, Ava has one more trip, so we get to watch as she goes on this last trip. Things don't start off like she wanted them to. She kind of gets on crew with a wily bunch, and one of those crewmates is Jack, who Ava does not like. He's a woman-hater. He has all these rumors about him. She just knows that he's a terrible person and likes to put him in his place. Miscommunication trope. for sure. Or like misunderstanding trope. The things that I did really like about this book were the writing style. I thought that the author did a really great job with the writing tone. I loved that it ended up in Belize and there were some fun adventures there. I did not like how mean Ava was to Jack without even trying to get to know him. Again and again and again, she's just so mean to him, and I'm like, Jack, man, like, run away. They try to make it obvious that Ava's not normally like this in the book, but she's like that the whole book, so we don't get to see another side of her where she's not like that. So that just wasn't my favorite, but I did like the setting. I loved getting to see the behind the scenes of the flight attendant scene because apparently the author is a flight attendant, so I thought that was really fun. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am so tired. This is literally like an hour and 20 minutes. RIP editing Elise. If you made it this far, wow, props to you. You guys are amazing. Be sure to subscribe, because if you can handle listening to me for like an hour and a half talking, then man, I want you for my friend. Time to go sleep. It's like 10 p.m. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found some books that you really like and maybe want to add to your TBR. Let me know if you read any of these books or what your favorite book was of the month, or January or February, what you've read so far this year. I want to hear anything you want to chat about books with me. I'm just like so down, please. Okay, I'm getting a little delirious. I think it's time to go sleep now. Bye, everyone. Mwah! Stray Cat showed up on our property a month or two ago, and she's finally become more comfortable enough to... I swear this whole video has been a disaster. Next we have Starfish. Be my friend, please talk books with me. Mwah! That was such a weird kiss.